The year is 1898. High in the desolate, untamed stretches of the Rocky Mountains lies Lost Echo Pass, a treacherous and isolated railway route. It's named not for its acoustics, but for a chilling historical event, the mysterious disappearance of the Midnight Express, a fully laden passenger train that vanished without a trace in the winter of 1888, taking with it over 100 souls and a fortune in gold bullion. No wreckage was ever found, no bodies, just the stark, snowy silence of the mountains. Our story begins with Dr. Alastair Finch, a brilliant but eccentric geologist and engineer from the East, obsessed with the impossible physics of the Midnight Express's disappearance. Finch believes the official explanations, a massive avalanche, a sudden rockslide, are insufficient. He theorizes about anomalous magnetic fields, hidden geological faults, or even something beyond human comprehension. He arrives in the remote, fading rail town of Cinder Creek, the last outpost before the pass, bringing with him a trunk full of strange instruments and a mind filled with wild theories. Cinder Creek is a ghost of its former self, its residents a collection of hardened, superstitious railway workers and cynical old-timers. They view Finch with a mix of suspicion and weary amusement. The local sheriff, Deputy Miller, a practical man with a deeply ingrained respect for the mountains, warns Finch against disturbing the past. "Some things are best left buried, Doctor," Miller grunted, gesturing vaguely towards the towering peaks. "The past takes what it wants." The old-timers speak of the whispering pines, ancient, gnarled trees that line the approach to Lost Echo Pass. They say the wind through their needles carries the laments of the lost, and that on certain moonless nights, you can hear the faint, ghostly sound of a train whistle and the distant rumble of an engine, even when no trains are due. Finch, however, is undeterred. He establishes a small camp just outside the pass, setting up his peculiar equipment: magnetometers, seismic sensors, and an array of strange, coiled wires. He spends weeks meticulously mapping anomalies, analyzing the subtle shifts in the Earth's magnetic field. He finds strange, localized energy spikes, almost like faint echoes of a massive electrical discharge, concentrated in a specific section of the pass known as the Dead Man's Cut. This was precisely where the Midnight Express was last reported. As Finch delves deeper into his research, he begins to experience strange phenomena himself. His delicate instruments sometimes hum inexplicably, or their needles spin wildly without cause. At night, huddled in his tent, he starts to hear them, faint, disembodied whispers carried on the wind through the pines. They are too indistinct to understand, but they evoke a profound sense of sorrow and desperation. One night, a sudden, inexplicable jolt shakes his tent, as if something massive has struck the ground nearby, yet there's no sign of a rockslide or avalanche. He rushes outside, his lantern cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. The air is frigid, and a strange metallic scent hangs heavy, reminiscent of ozone after a lightning strike. Then, from the very heart of the whispering pines, Elias hears it, faint at first, then growing steadily louder, the unmistakable, mournful whistle of a steam train, followed by the rhythmic, heavy chug-chug-chug of an engine, accompanied by the clatter of steel wheels on rails. It sounds impossibly close, yet there are no tracks near his camp. He stares into the dense forest, his breath catching in his throat. Through the swirling mist and the shadows of the pines, he sees it, a faint, luminous outline of a train, moving silently through the trees, its ghostly form shimmering and indistinct. It's the Midnight Express, or an apparition of it, its spectral cars phasing in and out of view. It passes directly through the gnarled trunks of the whispering pines, leaving no broken branches, no disturbed snow. Finch stands transfixed, his scientific mind reeling. The train, a phantom echo of a decade-old tragedy, passes directly into the dead man's cut, then simply vanishes. No sound, no trace, just the returning oppressive silence of the pass, broken only by the mournful sigh of the wind. Finch is no longer just studying an unsolved mystery. He is witnessing a haunting. The whispering pines had indeed begun to speak, revealing the terrifying, unexplainable truth of Lost Echo Pass. The spectral manifestation of the Midnight Express shattered Alastair Finch's scientific skepticism. What he had dismissed as folklore now stood before him as a terrifying, undeniable reality. The haunting was real, and it was intrinsically linked to the disappearance of the train. He knew he needed more than instruments. He needed answers from those who had been closest to the event. Finch returned to Cinder Creek, his wild theories about magnetic anomalies now interwoven with a chilling conviction of the supernatural. Deputy Miller, upon hearing Finch's account, listened with a grim, knowing silence. "The mountains keep their secrets, Doctor," Miller finally said, "and sometimes they show you just enough to warn you away." Finch, however, was past warnings. He sought out anyone who had worked on the Midnight Express or knew the crew. His search led him to Old Man Beauregard, a retired rail yard foreman whose memory was as sharp as his tongue. Beauregard had been responsible for the Midnight Express's final inspection. Beauregard spoke of Thomas Black Tom Jenkins, the engineer of the Midnight Express. Jenkins was known as an exceptionally skilled and meticulous engineer, almost obsessively so. He kept a personal engineer's ledger, a small, leather-bound book where he noted not just engine performance, but also unusual occurrences on the tracks. Black Tom, he was a careful man, Beauregard recounted, his voice raspy. But in the weeks before it vanished, he started acting strange, distracted, always looking out at the pass, like he was seeing things none of us could. Finch pressed him. Did he ever mention anything specific? Anything unusual about Lost Echo Pass? Beauregard hesitated, then lowered his voice. He muttered about a singing rock in the dead man's cut, said it sometimes hummed, and he was always sketching in that ledger of his. Strange symbols they looked like, not train schematics. Finch's heart leaped. Symbols. Just like the strange energy patterns he'd been detecting. He immediately set about trying to find Jenkins's ledger. The railroad company records provided no clue. It was a personal item. He spent days sifting through old railway archives, forgotten personal effects, and even derelict homes where Jenkins might have lived. Finally, in a dusty, abandoned shack that Jenkins had once rented on the outskirts of Cinder Creek, Finch found it. Tucked beneath a loose floorboard, concealed beneath a pile of old newspapers, was the engineer's ledger. It was water-stained and brittle, but mostly intact. Finch opened the book, his hands trembling. The initial entries were indeed routine: fuel consumption, repairs, weather conditions. But as he turned the pages, the entries grew increasingly erratic. Jenkins's precise handwriting devolved into hurried scrawls. He spoke of unnatural cold in the dead man's cut, of voices on the wind that whispered his name, and of a pervasive sense of being watched by the pines themselves. Then, Finch found the sketches. They were crude, unsettling drawings of the whispering pines, their branches twisted into grotesque, almost skeletal figures. and interspersed amongst them were the very strange symbols Beauregard had mentioned. Complex, interwoven patterns that seemed to pulse with an unseen energy, similar to the anomalies Finch had detected with his instruments. One chilling entry, dated the day before the Midnight Express vanished, sent a cold dread through Finch. The singing rock grows louder. The pines, they are restless. They want something. A toll for passage. Not gold. Not lives. Something else. A memory. A secret. They demand a truth from the heart. The train. It feels heavy tonight, as if it carries more than just souls and cargo. It carries a burden. The rider is here. The last entry was almost illegible, scrawled in frantic pencil. The veil, it thins. The pines, they feed. The truth will be known. The price is paid. Forgiveness for the lost. But the journey, it is unending. I see them, the others. The page ended abruptly with a smeared ink blot, as if Jenkins's hand had been violently pulled away. Finch dropped the ledger, his mind reeling. Jenkins wasn't just a victim. He was a witness, perhaps even an unwitting participant in the train's disappearance. The singing rock, the toll for passage, the rider, all pointed to something far more intricate than a simple accident. The whispering pines of Lost Echo Pass were not merely haunted. They were active participants, perhaps even sentient entities, demanding a horrifying price from those who dared to cross their path, and holding the Midnight Express in an eternal, spectral journey. The engineer's ledger held the chilling key, a personal account of the very moment reality unraveled in Lost Echo Pass. The chilling revelations in Engineer Jenkins's ledger transformed Alastair Finch's scientific quest into a terrifying personal mission. The singing rock, the toll for passage, and the implication of a rider all pointed to an ancient, malevolent force at play in Lost Echo Pass. Finch realized the whispering pines were not just trees. They were bound to something far older, a forgotten pact demanding a terrifying price. Finch returned to Old Man Beauregard, the ledger clutched in his hand. He showed him Jenkins's frantic entries and the strange symbols. Beauregard, though initially skeptical of the supernatural, recognized the symbols with a jolt of fear. These are old Native American glyphs, he rasped, his voice trembling. From the Ute tribes. My grandfather, he worked with some of them. They spoke of places where the spirit world bleeds into ours, where the mountains demand a tribute of truth, not gold. Beauregard explained that the Ute people had long considered Lost Echo Pass a sacred but forbidden area, a place of immense spiritual power where their ancestors had performed ancient rituals to maintain balance. Certain locations, like the Dead Man's Cut, were believed to be thin spots in the veil between worlds, places where communication with spirits was possible, but dangerous. The Singing Rock, he theorized, was likely a natural rock formation resonating with this spiritual energy. The toll for passage wasn't about money or material wealth. It was about secrets, about unspoken truths, about the burdens of the heart. The Ute believed that if a person carrying a profound, hidden lie or secret passed through such a place, the mountains would claim it, consuming the truth and often, the person, to maintain their spiritual equilibrium. The whispering pines, Beauregard suggested, acted as conduits, absorbing these truths. This shed a terrifying new light on the Midnight Express. Was there a collective secret, a shared burden among the passengers or crew that the pass had claimed? Or was it the secret of a single powerful individual, whose hidden truth was so immense that it dragged the entire train into the spirit realm? Finch recalled Jenkins's entry. "The train, it feels heavy tonight. As if it carries more than just souls and cargo. It carries a burden." The spectral appearance of the train, phasing in and out of existence, suggested it was trapped between worlds, forever repeating its final journey, its existence bound by the very secret it carried. The rider Jenkins mentioned could be a guardian of this threshold, or perhaps an entity born from the very secrets absorbed by the pass. Finch knew he had to go back to the Dead Man's Cut, to the Singing Rock and the Whispering Pines. He needed to understand the nature of this truth the mountain demanded, and why Jenkins, a meticulous engineer, had been so obsessed with it. He packed a minimal kit, including a recorder, hoping to capture the sounds of the Singing Rock and the whispers. As he prepared, Deputy Miller approached him, his face etched with worry. "Doctor, you're going back to that cursed place, aren't you? Some things, once stirred, cannot be settled." "I have to, Deputy," Finch replied, his voice firm. "The truth demands it, and my scientific curiosity, as well as something deeper, won't let me rest." Miller sighed, then handed him an old, tarnished silver locket. This belonged to a passenger on that train, a young woman named Sarah. Never found her. Her family gave this to me, hoping, well, maybe it'll keep you safe. Or perhaps, she's one of the truths the mountain took. Finch took the locket. It was cold to the touch, and he felt a strange sense of melancholy emanating from it. He held it tightly, another tangible link to the lost souls of the Midnight Express. He returned to Lost Echo Pass, the silence more menacing than ever. As he approached the Dead Man's Cut, the wind through the whispering pines intensified, no longer a mournful sigh, but a chorus of faint, echoing murmurs, like countless voices speaking just beyond the edge of hearing. He found the Singing Rock, a large, weathered boulder with a natural fissure, from which a low, resonant hum now emanated. He set up his recording equipment, a mix of apprehension and scientific thrill coursing through him. As the hum grew louder, the whispers from the pines became almost intelligible, coalescing into fragmented phrases. The lie, the betrayal, the unseen, the price. And then, clearer, more chilling than ever, the faint, distant sound of a train whistle cut through the air, followed by the familiar chug chug chug. The Phantom Midnight Express was returning, and Finch was standing directly in its path, about to discover the nature of the truth that the Whispering Pines had so greedily demanded. Alastair Finch stood transfixed in the Dead Man's Cut, the ghostly rumble of the Midnight Express growing louder, its spectral form beginning to coalesce amidst the whispering pines. The air crackled with chilling energy, and the Singing Rock pulsed with an intense, resonant hum. This was the terrifying culmination of his research, the moment the veil thinned entirely. As the spectral train drew closer, its luminous outline becoming more defined, Finch noticed something new, something profoundly unsettling. Through the translucent walls of the ghostly carriages, he could see faint, shimmering figures within the passengers. They sat in their seats, indistinct and mournful, their faces obscured by shadow and the ethereal glow of the train. They were the lost souls, forever bound to their final, cursed journey. The whispers from the pines intensified, becoming a cacophony of sorrow and fragmented truths. The secret, the deceit, the heart's burden. And then, a chilling clarity emerged, specifically from a section of the train, the golden key, the unpaid debt, the hidden cash. Finch's attention was drawn to one particular carriage. near the rear of the train. It glowed with a slightly brighter, more agitated light. He felt a sudden, inexplicable coldness, and the locket Deputy Miller had given him, clutched in his pocket, felt icy to the touch, almost vibrating. This was Sarah's carriage, he instinctively knew. Then, from that very carriage, a single more distinct whisper pierced through the general clamor. He saw. He knew the golden truth. As the spectral train passed directly through the spot where Finch stood, a gust of impossibly cold wind swept through him, carrying with it a faint, sickly sweet scent, reminiscent of decaying wood and something metallic. His recording equipment whirred erratically, its needles spinning wildly before flatlining. He felt a profound sense of despair, a wave of collective sorrow from the lost souls. But as the train phased past him, a small, dark object seemed to detach from the glowing carriage and fell silently to the ground at his feet. The spectral train continued its silent journey, vanishing into the rocky face of the mountain as if swallowed by the stone itself, leaving behind only the fading hum of the singing rock and the mournful sigh of the wind through the pines. Finch, trembling, bent down. The object was an old, leather-bound wallet, damp and brittle with age. He opened it carefully. Inside, amidst a few faded banknotes, was a single, tarnished brass key, intricately carved. It felt unusually heavy, imbued with a strange, cold energy. And then he found it, a small, folded piece of paper. It was a train ticket for the Midnight Express, dated the day it vanished. And on the back, scrawled in faint, hurried pencil, was a name, Silas Croft. Beneath the name, a cryptic message, the vault, the true cargo. He knew. Finch's mind raced. Silas Croft. He wasn't a passenger listed on the official manifest, or at least, not a prominent one. He was an unseen passenger. And the reference to the vault and the true cargo. This wasn't about the official gold bullion the train was carrying. This was about something else, something hidden, something Croft knew about. The whispers of golden truth and unpaid debt suddenly made chilling sense. The silence that followed the train's disappearance was heavier than before, laden with the weight of this new revelation. Finch understood now. The Midnight Express hadn't vanished due to an avalanche. It had been claimed by the mountains, drawn into the thin veil, because of a profound, hidden secret carried by one of its passengers. Silas Croft, and whatever golden truth he held, was the key. And the lingering coldness from Sarah's locket in his pocket suggested she, perhaps, was one of the many lives caught in the wake of this fatal secret. The horrifying mystery of the lost Echo Pass had just revealed its central, unseen passenger, and the true, chilling nature of the toll demanded by the Whispering Pines. The discovery of Silas Croft's wallet and the cryptic note about the vault and the true cargo shifted Alastair Finch's investigation from a general haunting to a focused search for a specific, dangerous secret. Silas Croft was the unseen passenger, the likely catalyst for the Midnight Express's spectral fate. Finch returned to Cinder Creek, determined to uncover Croft's identity and the truth he carried. He showed the wallet and ticket to Deputy Miller, who, after examining the artifacts with a grim expression, finally broke his stoic demeanor. Silas Croft, Miller muttered, his eyes distant. He was a name whispered in the shadows, even back then. A railroad detective. But not just any detective. He worked for the railroad's secret intelligence branch, the one that handled sensitive matters. Miller explained that Croft was on a highly confidential assignment on the Midnight Express. Rumors persisted that the train was carrying more than just the official gold bullion. It was believed to be transporting a secret, illicit shipment of stolen silver and rare earth minerals, amassed by a powerful, corrupt railroad executive named Elias Vance. Vance was notorious for his ruthless business practices and shadowy dealings. Croft was tasked with retrieving this true cargo and gathering evidence against Vance. Vance was a man who wouldn't let anything get in his way, Miller stated, his voice hardening. Especially not a nosy detective. There were whispers that Vance had informants everywhere, even within the train's crew. Some believed he even had a hand in some accidents on the line. The pieces began to click into place for Finch. The golden truth mentioned by the phantom voices wasn't gold bullion. It was the damning evidence Croft carried against Vance, the truth of his illicit dealings. The unpaid debt wasn't financial. It was a debt of justice, of karma, that the mountain had somehow exacted. The toll for passage, the Whispering Pines demanded, was Croft's secret, and in claiming it, they had inadvertently claimed the entire train, binding it to an eternal spectral loop. The brass key found in Croft's wallet now took on new significance. This key, Finch mused aloud, it's for a vault, not a bank vault, perhaps, but somewhere the stolen cargo, or more evidence, was hidden. Miller remembered something. Vance owned a private, isolated hunting lodge, deep in the hills north of here, just a few miles from the Dead Man's Cut. He had a reputation for having secret caches there, for his less-than-legal dealings. A vault, maybe. Finch felt a renewed sense of urgency. The mystery wasn't just paranormal. It was a decades-old crime, intertwined with the supernatural. The spectral train wasn't just a haunting, it was a manifestation of justice, unable to rest until the truth it carried was fully revealed and the debt paid. As Finch gathered supplies for his journey to Vance's old lodge, a chilling thought struck him. The spectral train, the Whispering Pines, the Singing Rock, they hadn't just consumed Croft's secret. They were actively trying to reveal it, to release the burden that kept the train trapped between worlds. The haunting was a desperate message, an attempt to complete the unfinished mission of Silas Croft. The journey to Vance's abandoned lodge was arduous. The trail was overgrown, winding through dense, ancient forests. The air was heavy, and the silence oppressive, broken only by the mournful sigh of the wind through the pines. Finch felt a familiar chill, a sense of being watched. These were the same Whispering Pines, extending their reach, guarding the secrets they held. He finally reached the lodge, a decaying timber structure shrouded in shadow. The door hung ajar, swinging on rusted hinges, creaking in the wind. Inside, dust motes danced in the shafts of light, illuminating the skeletal remains of what was once a lavish, yet sinister, hideout. Finch began his meticulous search for a vault, guided by the brass key and the chilling whispers from the spirit of Silas Croft. The unseen passenger had finally found a way to deliver his truth, and Finch was his unwitting accomplice in uncovering a conspiracy that had spanned a decade and taken over 100 lives. Alastair Finch stepped into Elias Vance's abandoned hunting lodge, the brass key heavy in his hand. The decaying structure felt cold and desolate, a fitting shell for the secrets of a corrupt man. The silence inside was thick, broken only by the mournful creak of the floorboards and the distant sigh of the Whispering Pines. He began his systematic search for a vault, checking every nook and cranny, tapping walls, and examining floorboards. The lodge was filled with dusty, opulent furniture, but also hidden compartments and false bottoms in drawers, hinting at Vance's illicit activities. The air occasionally carried a faint metallic scent, almost like the ozone in Dead Man's Cut, further confirming this was a place connected to the chilling events. After hours of painstaking work in Vance's study, behind a heavy oak bookshelf that pivoted on a hidden hinge, Finch found it. A small, crude steel vault built into the stone wall. Its heavy door was secured with an intricate lock. The brass key felt cold and strangely eager in his hand. He inserted the key. It turned with a satisfying, ancient click. As the vault door swung open, a cloud of stale, musty air billowed out, carrying with it that distinct, sickly sweet, almost floral scent Finch had come to associate with the spectral train. Inside the vault, neatly stacked, were several heavy wooden crates. Finch pulled one out, his heart pounding. He pried open the lid and gasped. The crate was filled, not with gold bullion, but with gleaming silver ingots and carefully wrapped packets of what appeared to be raw, uncut diamonds and rare, lustrous minerals. This was the true cargo Silas Croft had been investigating. Vance's illicit fortune, far more valuable and easier to conceal than gold. But the crates contained more than just treasure. Tucked beneath the minerals in one crate, Finch found a thick, leather-bound ledger. It was Vance's private accounting book, meticulously detailing his illegal mining operations, his smuggling routes, and the payoffs to corrupt officials within the railway company and the local government. It was undeniable, irrefutable proof of his vast criminal enterprise. And then, a chilling detail. On the inside cover of Vance's ledger, scrawled in an arrogant hand, was a name and a small, crudely drawn symbol. The name was Jedediah Stone. The symbol was a variation of one of the Ute glyphs Finch had seen in Engineer Jenkins's ledger, associated with the blood price or oath-breaking. Finch's blood ran cold. Jedediah Stone, the supposedly trustworthy foreman of Cinder Creek, was implicated. He was Vance's informant, the one who had likely betrayed Silas Croft and the Midnight Express. As Finch processed this shocking revelation, a distinct icy sensation washed over him. The air in the vault grew heavy, and a low, mournful whisper filled the small space, seeming to emanate from the very walls. The truth, the betrayal, the burden released. It was the collective voice of the Midnight Express, finally finding its justice, now that its secret had been unveiled. Just then, a floorboard outside the study creaked. Finch froze. Someone was in the lodge. He gripped the ledger and the key, peering out cautiously. Through the gloom, he saw a shadowy figure moving silently through the main room, heading towards the study. The figure was tall, lean, and moved with a familiar halting gait. It was Jedediah Stone. Jedediah, his face grim, his one eye glinting in the dim light, held an old, worn revolver. "Thought you'd come sniffing around here, Doctor," he rasped, his voice devoid of its usual gruffness, replaced by a cold, calculating tone. Vance always said curiosity was a dangerous thing, especially when it came to his secrets. And mine. Finch felt a surge of adrenaline. The curse of the Midnight Express was no longer just a haunting. It was a deadly human conspiracy, still active. The unveiling of the vault had released the truth, but it had also drawn out the lingering shadow of the man who had helped bury it. Finch was now caught between the wrath of a human conspirator and the lingering spectral power of a train that refused to rest until all its burdens were settled. The ancient secrets of the mountains had just delivered him into a very modern and very dangerous confrontation. The air in Elias Vance's lodge crackled with tension. Alistair Finch, holding Vance's damning ledger, faced Jedediah Stone, the treacherous foreman, now revealed as the conspirator who had betrayed Silas Croft. Jedediah's revolver was steady, its barrel glinting in the dim light. "So, the doctor's a snoop," Jedediah sneered, his voice low and dangerous. "Thought you were just chasing ghost trains. Turns out you're digging up old dirt better left buried." Finch kept his voice calm, despite the terror gripping him. "You worked for Vance. You helped him move this illicit cargo. And you betrayed Silas Croft." He gestured to the ledger. "It's all here, Jedediah. Your name, your part in this." Jedediah's one eye narrowed. "Vance gave me a cut. A big one. This damn railroad, it chewed us up, spit us out. Vance offered a way out. All I had to do was tell him when Croft was getting too close. A simple signal. The Midnight Express. It was just bad luck, caught in the crossfire." "Bad luck?" Finch scoffed. "You knew the route. You knew the timing. You helped Vance orchestrate that accident. And what about the mountain? The Whispering Pines? Did you know they would claim the train and its secrets, binding them forever?" Jedediah actually flinched. "The mountain? That was unexpected. Vance, he just wanted the train derailed, the cargo retrieved, Croft silenced. The rest, the spirits, the haunting, that was the mountain's doing, not ours. But it served its purpose. No one goes near the pass anymore. No one finds the cargo." As he spoke, a faint, metallic clang, like distant train cars coupling, echoed from somewhere outside the lodge. The air grew perceptibly colder, and the familiar faint scent of ozone and decaying wood filled the room. The whispers began, soft at first, then growing into a low, mournful chorus, seeming to emanate from the very timbers of the lodge. Jedediah's face paled. "What's that?" "The train," Finch whispered. "It's here. It's always here. It never rests. Not until the truth is fully revealed and the debt paid." Suddenly, the already decaying timbers of the lodge began to groan and creak, more violently than the wind could cause. Dust rained down from the ceiling. A distinct train whistle shrieked, seemingly coming from directly outside the lodge. The faint, luminous outline of the Midnight Express, or parts of it, began to shimmer into view through the windows, its spectral form passing silently through the surrounding trees. Jedediah screamed, not a sound of defiance, but pure, primal terror. He fired his revolver wildly, the bullets tearing through the spectral form of the train, leaving no mark. "Get away from me! You can't have it! It's mine!" The spectral train, unhindered, continued its silent passage. As it passed directly through the lodge, a wave of intense cold washed over them. Finch felt a profound sense of sorrow, a surge of righteous indignation from the ghostly passengers. And then, Jedediah Stone began to choke. He dropped his revolver, clutching at his throat, his face turning an alarming shade of blue. His eyes bulged, fixed on the spectral train as it phased through the wall. He made gurgling sounds, trying to speak, trying to confess, but no words came out. It was as if an unseen hand was squeezing his windpipe. Finch watched, horrified. This was not his doing. This was the mountain's justice. The spectral presence of the Midnight Express was exacting its final toll, silencing the betrayer, completing its mission to reveal the truth and claim its due. Jedediah collapsed to the floor, still gasping, his body convulsing. The last sounds he made were desperate, choked gurgles, his secrets dying with him, or so it seemed. The spectral train continued its silent, inexorable journey, vanishing once again into the distant mountain peaks. The lodge fell silent, save for Jedediah's ragged, dying breaths. Finch, trembling, cautiously approached Jedediah. The foreman was barely alive, his eyes glazed over, staring blankly. He had been silenced by the very secret he had helped bury. The supernatural had intervened, not just to reveal, but to punish. The curse of the Midnight Express, born from a human conspiracy, had now claimed its final living victim, leaving Alastair Finch as the sole bearer of its terrifying, unveiled truth. Jedediah Stone lay gasping on the floor of Vance's lodge, his final, choking breaths rattling in the sudden silence. The spectral Midnight Express had vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind only the chilling scent of ozone and the grim evidence of a supernatural retribution. Alastair Finch, still reeling from the encounter, knew the full, terrifying truth had finally been delivered. Jedediah died minutes later, his secret suffocated by the very forces he had defied. Finch stood over the body, a mix of horror and grim satisfaction washing over him. The train, a phantom of justice, had claimed its betrayer. He carefully collected Vance's ledger, the brass key, and the small wallet belonging to Silas Croft. These were no longer just artifacts of a cold case. They were the tangible proof of a haunting, a conspiracy, and a divine, or perhaps infernal, retribution. He returned to Cinder Creek, carrying the heavy burden of his discoveries. Deputy Miller was waiting for him, his face etched with concern. Finch laid out the evidence. The ledger detailing Vance's illicit silver and mineral smuggling, Jedediah Stone's name scrawled within, and the story of Jedediah's chilling demise in the lodge. Miller, a man of the law, tried to rationalize it. Jedediah had a bad heart, Doctor. Maybe the stress. But as Finch described the spectral train, the cold, the suffocating presence, Miller's eyes grew wide with an ancient fear he knew all too well. He had dismissed the legends for so long, but now, faced with concrete evidence and Finch's unwavering conviction, he knew the truth was far stranger than any natural explanation. The revelation of Vance's criminal empire and Jedediah's betrayal sent shockwaves through Cinder Creek and beyond. The railroad company, initially trying to suppress the story, was forced to acknowledge the evidence. The Midnight Express disaster was re-examined, its cause no longer a simple avalanche, but a deliberate act of sabotage tied to a vast criminal conspiracy. The remaining fortunes of Elias Vance were seized, and his reputation, though already tarnished, was utterly destroyed. Justice, of a sort, had been served in the mortal realm. But the question remained, had the spectral Midnight Express finally found peace? Finch returned to Lost Echo Pass in the days that followed. The Singing Rock was silent. The Whispering Pines, though still ancient and foreboding, no longer carried the mournful whispers or the pervasive scent of ozone. He waited through several moonless nights, listening, watching. The ghostly train never appeared again. It seemed the price of retribution had been paid. The secret that had bound the Midnight Express to its eternal journey was revealed, and the primary conspirator, Jedediah Stone, had been punished by the very entities he had indirectly unleashed. The mountain, having taken its toll in truth and in lives, seemed to have finally found its equilibrium. However, the pass was not entirely devoid of its eerie atmosphere. Finch still felt a faint, lingering chill in the dead man's cut, and sometimes a single distant train whistle would echo through the valley, mournful and fleeting, a memory carried on the wind. It was no longer a haunting of terror, but an echo of what had been, a reminder of the hundreds of souls still lost to the mountains. Finch understood that while the direct haunting had ceased, the legacy of the Midnight Express would forever be etched into the very fabric of Lost Echo Pass. The mountains had claimed their secrets, revealing them only when the time was right, exacting their own peculiar brand of justice. He published his findings, detailing not just the scientific anomalies, but the spectral phenomena and the criminal conspiracy. His accounts were met with a mix of awe, skepticism, and fear, cementing his reputation as a brilliant but controversial figure. Alastair Finch left Cinder Creek a changed man. The mysteries of the supernatural had permeated his scientific mind, leaving him with a profound respect for the unknown, and a chilling understanding that the world held far more than could be explained by logic alone. The price of retribution had been paid, but the indelible mark of the Midnight Express, and its spectral journey into the heart of the mountains, would forever haunt the quiet, echoing silence of Lost Echo Pass. The direct haunting of the Midnight Express ceased after Jedediah Stone's demise, but Alastair Finch knew that the spectral event was not simply over. It had merely reached a new phase. The mountains, vast and ancient, held a memory far deeper than human comprehension, a memory etched into the very stone and the whispering pines. The price of retribution had been paid, but the mountain's memory endured. Finch dedicated the rest of his life to studying anomalous phenomena, but Lost Echo Pass remained his central obsession. He would return periodically, not seeking the train, but merely observing, trying to understand the deeper mechanisms of what he called spiritual geology. He theorized that the mountain itself acted as a vast, natural capacitor, absorbing and retaining intense emotional and truthful energies, manifesting them when certain conditions were met. He believed the whispering pines continued to play a crucial role. Their gnarled branches and deep roots were not just conduits for the wind. They were ancient sentinels, silent witnesses that recorded the hidden truths of the pass. On certain nights, when the moon was dark and the wind blew just right, Finch swore he could still hear faint, almost imperceptible whispers through their needles, not malevolent, but mournful, like a collective sigh for the burdens they carried. The singing rock in the dead man's cut also remained a point of fascination. While its intense hum had subsided, Finch noted subtle changes in its resonance, almost as if it pulsed with a faint echo of past events, a spectral heart that beat with the mountain's rhythm. He speculated that it was a natural amplifier for the energies within the pass, explaining why the haunting had been so potent there. Local tales about Lost Echo Pass also began to evolve. While the full terror of the Midnight Express vanishing became a historical legend, new, subtler stories emerged. Hunters reported seeing strange, fleeting lights deep in the woods, resembling lantern glows, only to vanish when approached. Hikers sometimes spoke of feeling a sudden, inexplicable sadness in certain parts of the pass, or hearing sounds like distant, fading cries carried on the wind. These were no longer the violent manifestations of a trapped train, but the lingering echoes of its tragedy, etched into the very landscape. Finch believed these phenomena were the mountain's ongoing memory, a subtle replaying of the emotional residue left by the lost souls. It was a less aggressive haunting, but perhaps more poignant, a constant reminder of the human lives caught in the web of an ancient, unforgiving landscape and a devastating conspiracy. He meticulously documented these subtle anomalies, creating intricate maps that overlaid geological data with reported spiritual occurrences. His final, unpublished works were a testament to his belief that the supernatural was not separate from the natural world, but deeply intertwined with it, a hidden layer of reality waiting to be understood. The story of the Midnight Express served as a unique case study for Finch, a place where a profound human secret, coupled with a geological anomaly, intersected to create a persistent, intelligent haunting. The mountain had demanded a truth, and in claiming it, had created a powerful, spectral archive of the event. Finch passed away peacefully in his sleep many years later, his mind still consumed by the mysteries of Lost Echo Pass. His journals, filled with his groundbreaking theories and meticulous observations, were left to a small, obscure academic society, hoping that future generations might continue his work, unearthing the scientific and spiritual truths that lay hidden in the world's most remote corners. The haunting of the Midnight Express had taught him that the natural world held secrets far stranger and more powerful than any man-made mystery, and that some memories, once imprinted on the land, would echo forever. Today, Lost Echo Pass remains a remote and untamed wilderness, largely untouched by the modern world. The small rail town of Cinder Creek is long gone, swallowed by time and the encroaching forest. The tracks of the old railroad have been reclaimed by rust and earth, barely visible amidst the dense undergrowth. The lodge of Elias Vance is nothing more than crumbling stone and rotting timber, slowly returning to the mountain. But the legend of the Midnight Express persists. It has evolved, warped by time and retelling, but its core remains. A train that vanished, taking with it over 100 souls, trapped forever in a purgatorial journey. Hikers, thrill-seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts still venture into the depths of Lost Echo Pass, drawn by the chilling allure of its dark history. Those who brave the elements and the pass's isolation sometimes report strange occurrences. In the Dead Man's Cut, where the singing rock once hummed, some claim to still feel an inexplicable cold spot, or a sudden profound sense of melancholy. On particularly still nights, when the wind dies down, a very faint, almost imperceptible humming can sometimes be heard, seeming to emanate from deep within the earth. The whispering pines stand as ever, their gnarled branches reaching towards the sky. On rare moonless nights, when a heavy fog rolls in, some claim to hear the faintest, ghostly sound of a train whistle carried on the wind, a mournful, distant cry that fades as quickly as it comes. It's often followed by a very subtle, almost subliminal rattle of unseen chains, or the faint echo of steel wheels on phantom rails. These are not the full-blown manifestations Finch witnessed, but rather the last lingering echoes of a profound tragedy. The true fate of the Midnight Express and its lost souls remains one of the West's most enduring mysteries. Was it indeed the mountain, acting as a spiritual arbiter, that consumed the train and its secrets? Or was it a unique convergence of human greed, a scientific anomaly, and ancient, forgotten spiritual forces that created an eternal haunting? Alistair Finch's theories, once dismissed as eccentric, have gained renewed interest in certain fringe scientific and paranormal circles. His meticulous journals, filled with observations of magnetic anomalies and psychic energies, offer a glimpse into a world where the boundaries of science and the supernatural blur. The brass key and Vance's ledger are now preserved in a small, obscure historical society, tangible proof of the human conspiracy that intersected with the spiritual. The whispering pines of Lost Echo Pass continue their silent vigil, holding within their ancient roots the memories of the lost, the echoes of a truth revealed, and the chilling promise of a journey that never truly ends. The Midnight Express, forever bound, continues its eternal passage through the veil, a phantom of justice and sorrow, reminding all who listen that some secrets, once disturbed, can ripple through time, leaving an indelible mark on the landscape and the very fabric of reality itself. The pass is quiet now, but the whispers linger, a timeless testament to the eternal journey.